In this video I show you how I painted this image here. Hi everyone, Zach here, and it's been a while since I uploaded my last painting video, and since then some things have changed. Back then I mainly used Mischief for the line art and Photoshop for coloring, and I used my standard Wacom Intous Pro M graphics tablet. But a few weeks ago I purchased the iPad Pro 12.9 inch and the Apple Pencil and the app Procreate, and I have to say I really love to draw on this. Just feels really great and you can move it around. You don't need to sit in front of your computer to draw, and I really like this. And since I purchased the iPad Pro, I did not use my Wacom and Photoshop and so on again for drawing. So this for me was definitely a good decision to buy. The iPad Pro 12.9 is relatively expensive though, but there's also a cheaper, smaller version with 10.5 inches. And there's also good news, the standard iPad with 9.7 inches now also supports the Apple Pencil. That means you also can use this for drawing, and it's even cheaper than the small iPad Pro. I will link all the tools I mentioned here down in the video description. And also check out this artist review of the latest iPad from Brad Colbow. He makes pretty awesome reviews on iPads and stuff like this. Alright, without further words, let's get started. So one of the greatest features here in Procreate, besides the drawing capabilities, is the fact that your whole painting process will automatically be recorded. You can look at it and also scroll through the whole process. And this is pretty cool because now we can look at this and I can stop every time and go back a little bit and tell you more about this. And here's one little trick. If the quality of the recorded video is not good enough, go to your settings, go to the Procreate settings, and here time-lapse recording quality you can change to a much better quality. Here I have 4K, certainly you also need more memory, but for the iPad Pro here it works totally fine. So, okay, now let's see how I started this process. Basically, I just had in mind that I just wanted to create this kind of robot here, and the rest was just a spontaneous idea or a spontaneous inspirations which came up, and then I started drawing them, the characters and the signs here. And you can see this is my sketch layer. So here I just sketch very rough. This doesn't have all the details in it. And also I just realized after drawing this that the composition is not really nice. So I just cut out the sign, the guy and the robot, put them on different layers, and then I scaled them, moved them around, rotated them a bit to have a nice composition. You can see how this changes over the time. Our designs now here in the foreground, the robot a bit more in the background, and the guy here more in the center. Then I create a new layer and reduce opacity of the sketch layer. And then I started to create the line art, as you can see. So I just have a brush with mainly one thickness, and you can also see that I use the sketch layer here just as references for the proportions, not really for the details. So I just try to imagine all the functionalities of this robots while I'm painting this. Certainly I've already a visual library of robot parts and so on, but yeah, also it can help a lot to look at references of robots and so on to get some ideas for all the different parts here. Also you can see I just add a few details, and I don't want to have this image too detailed. So I really just added more details in the foreground and on the more important objects, but the further away the objects are, the less details I add there. Also here we can see I add this 3 legs on the back here on both sides. And if we scroll back to the beginning, my initial idea was just to create a robot with 4 big legs. But if you take a look at the sketch in this position, I thought, well, it might be cool to add smaller legs to the back here and 3 of them on both sides, and just have these big legs in the foreground. this makes the shape of the robot much more interesting to look at. And yeah, you can see the background has just very few details. And in this way, we also have the idea of focus in this image if you have more details in the foreground. As you can see, we have a big blank area here and there's nothing but the sky, since our sign here is pretty high. And that's the reason why I decided to add some birds there, just to fill up the blank space a bit. And also this adds a bit more dynamic to the whole image. Then as next, I created a layer for the color, and I use mainly desaturated color, as you can see, so not this bright and saturated colors, and this really gives a different feel to our image. As you can see here, for the beginning, I just sketched in the colors with not much attention to details. So, and then after I find the colors I wanted to have for my image, I just erased the color which shows above the lines and so on. Also, as you can see, I tried a bit around with clouds here, since I didn't know how I wanted to approach the clouds. Here, I looked at some other artists' images which have a similar style to this one here, and I saw that they are doing this very flat style in the foreground, and for the clouds they're using this more painterly style. And this I tried out, which looks also quite okay, but in the end I just decided to also use a more flat style for these clouds here. To add depth to our image, it's important that the further away the mountains are, the more desaturated, brighter, and a little bit bluer the color gets. In this way, it feels like we have depth in our image. Also, one thing here, I try to not make the contrast between different colors too strong. Here, for example, this is pretty dark, so I changed this later on, because when I add the shadow layer, this area here gets really dark and even darker than the lines, because the lines are not 100% black here. Talking about the lines, if we stop here, you can see I separated my image in the foreground, the background here, and also the clouds. And each of this layer I give different color to the lines. You can see the clouds here, for example, have this very brownish line, so it doesn't pop up too much. And so also it feels that this is more in the distance, more in the background. And so we again have more focus on the foreground, because here I used a very dark brown for the lines. And the background part here, there I used a dark bluish tone. And this also feels that this is separating from the foreground a bit. Then, besides the color, I just added a few scratch details here and these highlights on the glass parts here. And then I went over to the shadow layer, which is a new layer with a very dark blue color and overlay method, which I show you in a second. And then I just painted the areas where I want to have the shadow. So, and to get a little bit more focus in my image, I also added this gradient here in the foreground and on the robot. And in this way, we have a little bit more focus on the character in this area here. And the attention goes not too much to the robot, because this is red and the red color would have taken too much attention. So that's basically the workflow I used, and that's about it. So now let's take a look at the layers I used here. Okay, let's start with the lines. I have the lines for the foreground and the robot, but we need a background here. So the lines for the foreground. If we zoom in, you can maybe see that this is a very dark brown color. So if this is not 100% black, this also adds to the style somehow. Then we have the robot, which is a dark bluish color, as you can see. So it's a bit in the background here. Then we have the lines for the background, which are even brighter blue, as you can see. And down here we have also the lines for the clouds, which are colored in this brighter brownish tone. Then we have the flat color for the main objects here, flat color for the ground and the background, as you can see, and also for the clouds and the background. So this is a whole image with just the flat colors. Then I also added a gradient to the background, so that we have a little bit darker blue up here and a bit brighter area down here. This also adds a illusion of mist or fog for the background. And also we can control the focus of the image a bit so that we are looking more into the bright areas than the dark areas. Then I added some highlights here to the glass. Then I added the gradient to the foreground and to the robot here for the focus part. And then I added the shadow layer. And here's one important thing. The shadow layer is basically this darkish blue color. So let's pick this here. And you can see that I did not just use a normal overlay method. You can see this is the color I just painted for the shadows. And I turned down the opacity. But you can see now the shadows are just relatively gray, although I used the dark blue color. And to make this more interesting, we can change the blend mode to overlay. And in this way, you can see the area where the shadow is on, it's just a bit more saturated. And also the blue comes out a bit more. And also for brighter colors, as you can see in the background, it automatically will be brighter. So for the distance, this also works automatically. And then you just have the color and can paint on this layer the shadows if you like. So this is really easy to do and just looks great. Okay, and the very final thing I do for my images, which adds the final little professionalism or whatever you want to call it, it's a noise layer. And with this noise layer, this looks a bit more like this was drawn on paper. And here in Procreate, it's pretty easy to do. I just create a new layer, put it on top of all the other layers here. Choose white color and just color the whole layer in white. Then I go to effects and add a noise effect. Yeah, not too much, maybe something about 30 to 40%. Now the noise is colored. If I zoom in, you can see. Then let's go to adjustments, use saturation, brightness, and turn down the saturation. And now we just have a black and white image, and then we simply can multiply the image and maybe turn down the opacity a bit. And then we have this nice noise effect. So after I was done, I exported this and uploaded this to Dropbox, and then I did some final adjustments in Photoshop, and that's about it. Yeah guys, that's about it with this video. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe learned a few things. If this is the case, feel free to share this video, like this, and also subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell under this video. And tell me in the comments below if you like this kind of painting videos, and if this is the case, I give my best to deliver more in the future. Also, if you need a friendly kick in the butt to keep making awesome art, check out my weekly CT challenge where you can participate, create awesome artworks 2D or 3D, and win awesome prizes. And we have a great Facebook community as well. For more info, just click here or check the links in the video description. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. See you on the next video. Goodbye.